Okay, so let's get down to that instant when they put the microphone on you and they say, okay, let's roll camera, and they start. What are some of the tools that you really want to have at your disposal to be able to present yourself?
As we talked off the top, there are a couple of things that are most important. It's knowing your subject, and also help educate the reporter. Give the reporter as much information as you can so they can help tell your story. Once you've done the preparation, once you've provided a lot of that, then it goes back to, if it's a shorter interview, how do I very clearly and succinctly tell my story? Some of that is thinking in terms of those sound bites that may be just 7 seconds or 15 seconds. And as you're preparing, then putting it into a headline. What's my headline? So if you were only going to speak in a couple of sentences, 2 or 3 at the very most, what is my headline? Some people, it's staying away from the long, rambling answers. So if you ask the question, I'm just trying to think of a small business, question that might be coming to someone. We talked about the restaurant before.
Right.
So if the question comes up, what sets your restaurant apart from any of these other restaurants? One of the things that you can do is you can repeat part of the question back to the reporter asking the question. And then they can choose a full sound bite by doing it.
It
that
helps
way.
in editing. I've edited for many years.
Right.
Sometimes I want to just take the whole, my restaurant is special because blah, or
Exactly.
I may want to use the question from the reporter and just cut the answer. So it gives options.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you take that and say, the reason my restaurant, La Taqueria, is so special is that I'm using a 100-year-old recipe from my grandmother, and this was a recipe that was gluten-free before gluten-free was even popular. That's a 15-second soundbite that I guarantee you, as a reporter, that's what they're looking for. If they're looking to pull sound bites, it's like, wow, that's a full soundbite. As you said, here's what sets me apart. Here are the 2 things that are really important. I got the grandma aspect in there, and I got this gluten-free recipe that's been around for a long time. Now that provokes, hopefully, another question from the reporter.
Like, what are some of the recipes that you do? And you could talk about how good this particular dish is,
Right.
or that one.
So use those 2 or 3 little things right there in that one sentence. Maybe you need a second sentence, but hopefully you've given them some information, and you've also provoked them in kind of a way that's piqued their curiosity that they want to ask the next question.
And it's good. I think, this is just sort of marketing. Some of it gets back to marketing 101. And I remember when you were talking about the Mexican restaurant, we had a place called Joe's Nothing Special Cafe, and it only lasted a very short time because nobody went in. And if you did go in, it was a Mexican restaurant that was all organic. Now, that isn't nothing special. That's something, but nobody would know it by just the sign on the door. They didn't take that one little message
Right.
to communicate
Yeah.
even what it was on their sign. So even if we had that person interviewed, would they have even thought to talk about what was special about their restaurant? It seemed to them nothing special.
And here's the other important part of really sorting through your strengths and your what we might want to call weaknesses in communication. People have their own natural type a way of communicating. Some people have a tendency to be more long-winded, to tell a full story, and then get to that headline at the very end. Mm-hmm. And the general public and journalists want that headline at the beginning. They want to know, or if you're going in to talk to someone you're trying to sell something to, an executive or a customer, they don't have much time. They want to know, okay, why am I here? Here's the reason, here's the headline, this is why we're having this meeting today. This is why I'm being interviewed, and this is what I want to tell. Once you've given them your headline first, then you can build in more of those details. That's actually how, as journalists, which is how the general public has a tendency to communicate more like a journalist. Let's use a very succinct way of communicating Then if we get more time, we can build in the details. As journalists are trained in school, you're trained to put that in that first headline, the 7 W's, the who, what, when, where, why of a story in that headline. Or if you're reading the newspaper, that's all in that first paragraph. If you read the newspaper like I read the newspaper, or if you're on the internet, you're reading the headline first. Here's the headline. Do I want more information from that story?
Right.
And if you do, then you're going to start reading down through the paragraphs. And maybe you only read the first paragraph or two. If your interest has been piqued enough, or it's a subject that's naturally interesting to you, you're going to read the full story.
Right.
That's how so you take that same concept and you put it together with how you're answering questions in an interview.
Strongest first.
Yes.
Strongest, most
the headline,
succinct first.
Yeah, the headline goes
The headline
first.
first, then the most engaging part, or the most,
Yeah.
and then you can get into the finer details.
Yeah. And as I work with people, I also work with them more specifically, and there are too many details to get in today on what their natural communication style is. So how do we work with that? So you learn to take your natural communication style and work with it in this way. I sometimes, if a client wants it, I'll work in Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs is the very widely known personality testing and typing that you can do. And I use the communication aspect of the Myers-Briggs specifically to look at what is your natural style and how does that adapt into a very succinct way of communicating so that you understand what your natural ability is and how you can optimize that in terms of interviewing or even being succinct with someone in a conversation or a meeting that you know you're not going to get much time for.